morning, did you think to yourself that a former head coach at LSU would be going somewhere else? Now, what I do think a lot of you thought would happen maybe today was that Texas would fire their head coach. Jay Johnson's name would be in the mix, which I'm going to leave that one alone for right now. But of course, it always comes from the same places. Nevertheless, we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports? Hope all of you are making it a good one. We know that we are as well. Huge show in store for you tonight. We got so much we got to get to. We went about 10 minutes or 5 minutes earlier than we normally do so that we can get into so many things before Carter Bryant joins us at 7:30. But we got to talk about Paul Manieri heading to South Carolina, taking Terry Rooney with him. We got to get to some of these rumors about Jay Johnson. If the Texas job does come open, is Jay interested? What do we know? What do we hear? We'll talk about that. Also, LSU adds a big-time right arm from the portal today, and Chandler Dorsey, so we'll discuss on that. Oh, by the way, John Emery is back. What does that mean? What do we think that it means? So many things that we got to delve into. Live in here in the studio, we have Georgia and NC State on. Georgia hits a 2-run bomb. NC State ties it, excuse me. So the last team in Omaha, we will find that out. We will sit here and watch it here with you tonight. So much that we have to get into. Excited to be back. You know, it is funny. A couple of things, a couple of notes, a couple of things I need to get to. I think it's funny, you know, this weekend I was with my wife and children. I told you on Thursday, hey, you know, listen, I'm going to take a step. I'm going to back off this weekend. Just want to spend some time with family. And Cam Johnson, who also we need to get to, enters the transfer portal, which, by the way, it's not going to be the last LSU Tiger to enter the portal. And if you are on our message board, AYSSnetwork.com, you might know where some rumors and rumblings are happening. Go over to the forum, AYSSnetwork.com/forum. We got some in there for you. But, you know, you can't take your wife to dinner in this business and pay attention to her because you'll have Rudy Poos with fake big accounts who will come in here. Oh, Blake was late. Yeah, I was having dinner with my wife. Maybe you should try to find yourself a significant other that loves you as much as I love mine, and she loves me. But nevertheless, we are live. We are here. Good to be here with you. We see it. We don't have to be first on everything. We can go to dinner. I don't have to constantly be scrolling my phone. It's a joke that you would do that. But you know what, some LSU fans are going to continue to always be petty because they have nothing else to do, but they won't tell it to your face. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get to it. Pete says, Jay not going to leave for a lesser program. Pete, here's what I'd say. Does Texas have the success of recent memory than LSU? And even going back 30 years, 30-plus years? No. Texas isn't a bad program. I don't want to go there, but it's not a bad program. Brian Tanya says, good evening, Blake from Springfield, Illinois. Yeah, I heard y'all got some good hunting up there. I heard y'all got some big bucks up in Springfield there, Brian. Good to have you in here. Yeah, where is everybody watching us from tonight? We'd love to see where all of you are watching us from. Nathan says, ask Blake, will Beth Torina have a job next season? I thought this season was OKC or bust. For her, your take. I have not talked on Beth Torina, really. Look, here's what I'd say. If they were going to fire her, I mean, it's been 2 weeks since their season's been over. Unless, I just don't know. I just don't know. But I think she's got another season. Let's see, man. I mean, guys, getting to a super regional, I don't think is that like we should just turn our heads at. I mean, you got to give her some more support from a money aspect too. But I don't know, man. I legitimately don't know. Legitimately don't know. Hudson says he's watching from prison. Well, that's not good. That's not good at all. Sean Cahill says, how big is the loss of Rooney? I think it's big in the sense of that he was a really good eye for talent. You know, he was the main guy for guys like DJ LeMahieu. I like Terry. I like Terry a lot. I think it's a big deal. In reference to recruiting, though, I think that, you know, look, man, Jay is an ultimate recruiter. I'm not worried about Terry, but Terry is going to go be a pitching coach at South Carolina. And Paul's obviously getting the band back together. Is it like a devastating loss? No. How do I want to say this? Do I think that there are people that would take that job right now that are better than Terry Rooney in reference to scouting and recruiting? Yes. I know one that's right here in the state that would take it. So 1,000%. Brian Turner says, what's up, Blake? How do you feel about LSU's O-line this year? I think they're going to be really good. Do we truly have the best unit? I think that you could. And he says, is Colorado overlooking North Dakota State? I haven't, I haven't really focused in on Colorado. They better not. That's all I'm going to tell you. But we'll see, man. I think I think they're going to sink, but that's just me. John Bro says he's in Houston, the 713. Good to have you in here, John. John Houston is in the building. Andrew Martin says Tarina under contract through 2026. Write it out and avoid buying or paying a buyout. Someone will emerge as Scott's guy or girl. And we'll know the state of the SEC with Texas and OU after 2 years. Very, very plausible. Very plausible. A couple more, then we got to get rolling. Cole Adams says, let's talk John Emery. We'll talk about him with Carter Bryant. We got a lot of baseball we need to get to as well. Hudson says, what number will John Emery Jr. wear? I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. None. We'll talk about that. I promise you we're going to talk about John Emery tonight, especially with Carter. What does it mean? So let's get to it. We have no time to waste. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all those groups. If you're on Facebook, share to all of those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. Our good friend Tyler Alexander over at LPT Realty. Our good friends over at J&J Exterminating. So much we got to get to, so little time. We do that next. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man, he's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call Tyler, he'll shoot you straight.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
We're back. You know, it's funny. About 2 hours ago, Paul Manieri said that exact same thing as former LSU head coach Paul Manieri is now is back into coaching and back into the SEC as he's going to be the next head coach of South Carolina. Let's not waste any time in getting to this as well. Look, I think that this stuns some people in reference to Paul being back in college baseball. Look, I think it was pretty prevalent, last year about Paul wanting to be back in college baseball when he was trying to get into the Miami job mix. I think that kind of soured. Paul still technically did have a buyout last year per a public records request. Now around, I think it was $850,000. He was still around the program. I don't know if that shied Miami away, but seemed like it might have. But today, Paul Manieri it's been reported by multiple people. Paul Manieri has confirmed it through multiple people as well and through AYS that he is going to be the next head coach of South Carolina. There are a couple of things here. Number one, let's talk about some good, and then we'll talk about some things that I think not only that South Carolina fans need to worry about, but what is just the realistic truth about Coach Manieri. Paul Manieri has won 1,501 games in his career, whether that be Air Force, Notre Dame, or LSU. Now, clearly he was at LSU for the longest tenure in all of that as the head coach. He won 641 games. He lost 283. Believe it or not, he tied 3 times in his career at LSU. He went to 5 College World Series in 15 seasons. 4 of those seasons, he had 50 wins. And obviously, he had 1 national championship, got back there in 2017 and lost with that team. I'm sure all of you remember with Kramer Robertson, Greg Dykman, and the boys that year. I will say this. Look, I don't think that Paul Manieri, even remotely close to what I've seen on social media, is as bad as a lot of people are making him out to be. I think South Carolina, from a head coaching perspective, got a lot better from what they previously had. 1,500 wins in college baseball is absolutely ridiculous. You cannot buy that experience in reference to going and getting someone that's young and hungry, whatever. The issue that I had with Paul, and there are a couple issues. Look, there's a lot of positives. The experience, pitching and defense is going to get a lot better there. I do think in the early parts of things, he's going to want to go into South Carolina. I do think that they're going to recruit okay, if not a little bit better than okay, in the beginning, because Terry Rooney, who was on LSU staff this past year, I think that they're going to be fine there in the initial part of it. But as years go on, I don't know how Paul is going to react to the new age of college sports. I remind you, Paul Manieri was not here during the transfer portal in its how do I want to say, chaos, really? You know, like Paul has not been in the fire when the portal has been this way, when guys will enter the portal, big names like Paul Skeens, like Tommy Tanks, quite honestly, like Luke Holman and Gage Jump were this past year. So I think that it's interesting that you're hiring a 66-year-old head coach that is coming back and look, was one of the best coaches in his tenure over the 15 years that he was at LSU and in the SEC. I don't think that you can take that away from him. I just don't know how I feel about this if I'm South Carolina. Now, I know what South Carolina fans will say. This guy is an LSU dude. He covers LSU. Of course he's going to say that. Guys, there's a reason that he retired. Now, what's going to happen is this. Now, remember this when we're in the baseball season next year. A lot of people, media included, because Paul was so great to the media, a lot of people are going to say how much they respect and love Paul Manieri. That is fantastic. But I remember, because we covered it here, the last years of Paul Manieri. You know, the neck issues, the constant stress, not wanting to be in it anymore. You know, when his unfortunately and when his dad passed, there were, you know, Paul just wasn't really the same. Maybe he comes back and absolutely kills the game. Maybe he does that. But I do think that Paul Manieri is going to have to show that he's got that fire back in his belly. Clearly, he still wants to be a coach. And clearly, the retirement thing was somewhat of, as the Italians would say, a little fugazi, because he's obviously back. And he was in conversations last year with Notre Dame. He was in conversations last year with Miami. This year, now he's going to South Carolina. So I don't buy that he was ever, and we talked about this when he retired. I don't buy that. The truth always was Paul got pushed out because since 2017, the fan base had grown restless. The recruiting was not up to par. And look, that is what ultimately led him out the door and Jay Johnson to come in. You know what is interesting, though? Do you remember the Florida series when Paul came in? Okay. And he came into the booth and he was talking to, I think it was Tom Hart and Kyle Peterson. And he was saying, you know, guys, on last year's team, there was a lot of the players that I recruited. And it felt like a shot to Jay. And I'm just picking up on some of the tea leaves that I've seen. Jay has more of a relationship and connection with Skip Bertman. I don't really know how much Jay liked or admired or thought of Paul, which is going to be interesting because both of those guys are going to play each other next year. I think LSU's got to go back to Columbia, which makes no sense because that would be the second time and they hadn't been to Baton Rouge, but that's neither here nor there. That relationship has always been interesting. The truth is, and what a lot of fans compared Paul Manieri to was Les Miles. Now, I'm going to let you have that decision amongst yourselves. A lot of people compared those two careers, even though I don't fully believe that that's true or fair, because, look, you legitimately have 4 seasons of 50 wins, and Paul Manieri got to the College World Series 5 times in 15 seasons. I don't think that that's fair to Paul to put him in the same breath as Les. But I don't know if this is a good hire for South Carolina. I don't know how Paul's going to react to the portal. I don't know how Paul is at raising money for NIL in today's world. You know, it's interesting because you have a lot of teams, and obviously Georgia is down 4-2. If you're watching it back on the replay, you already know the outcome of this. But Georgia's playing NC State right now. Like, I don't know of all the teams that are in the SEC if Paul is up to date with a lot of these current head coaches. You know, is he a better recruiter than Jay Johnson? Is he a better recruiter than Tony Vitello? Is he more hungry than Nick Mangione at Kentucky, who is absolutely blowing up right now? Does he have things rolling like Wes Johnson at Georgia? Oh, by the way, Clemson legitimately was hosting a super regional, and some people believe that if they would have had more of a fair chance, that maybe they would have tied the series with Florida. Oh, by the way, Florida is another team in the SEC who has out-recruited Paul Manieri and Kevin O'Sullivan, who has done better at Florida since he's been there than Paul Manieri. So I would just say, I think that this is very interesting. I think that Paul clearly did not want to step away. He clearly still has the itch, and a lot of people in the media love him. I'm just going to tell you the truth. I don't think it's going to work, to be real with you. And I will be the first that will come out here and say that I am wrong. I don't think it's going to work to the success of let me rephrase that. I don't think it's going to work to the success of what South Carolina fans wanted to work into. And South Carolina is a proud baseball program. You know, their AD was the head coach of the baseball program when they won back-to-back national championships in Ray Tanner. And I would assume that Ray Tanner and Paul Manieri have a really good relationship as to why he just hired him. But Paul does have a pretty good roster, a reasonable roster on his hands. Can he hit the ground running and going into the portal? I do feel personally, and this is what I was trying to say a little bit earlier, but just getting out clear with it, I do feel that some of the stuff that Paul had said about his love for LSU the last 2 years was BS, if I'm just being honest. I think that he never wanted to step down. I think that things had just passed him by. I don't think he went in the portal effectively enough, and it bit him in the ass. Guys, the portal opened in 2020. July of 2020 is when the portal was really enacted the way that it was, along with NIL. Can Paul get out there, shake hands, kiss babies, raise enough money? Maybe he can. And it's been a long time since Paul has had another P4, P5 team that's in his state. Guys, Clemson's still in the same state as him. North Carolina had 3 teams that hosted a regional. ECU, NC State, who's now at Georgia, and obviously the team that LSU lost to in North Carolina. You don't think that those guys aren't going to go into South Carolina and pluck some dudes? You're wrong. So I do think that it is I think that they are the most intriguing team to see what Paul can do. You can't buy 1,500 games, though. You can't buy the experience. He's seen more baseball than any of us, more than likely combined. Since we're on the coaching carousel, let's stay there for just a moment. Because there's been rumors floating out there in the ether that Texas is wanting to make a move on their head coach. And what has been interesting about that is one of the first couple of names that has come up has been Jay Johnson, your head baseball coach, who succeeded Paul Manieri, who we were just discussing. I do think it's interesting that a lot of these moves and a lot of these things always come from the same circles. That's neither here nor there. I do find it intriguing why Texas hasn't made a move. If they feel that they can go get Tony Vitello, if they feel that they can get Jay Johnson, why not make a move? As days continue to go on, if you felt like you can get Jay Johnson, why haven't you made a move yet? I feel highly confident that Jay Johnson is going to be a Tiger for a long time. And I think that the commitment today by Chandler Dorsey gave fans a little bit of a breath, and they could take a breath. They could excel because Jay is out there recruiting in the portal and got a really good kid today. I find it odd that their head coach has not been fired yet. At least not publicly, at least not to my knowledge. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I've been searching it. I haven't seen that they fired their head coach. And before you can make a hire, and I've heard from some that they want to hire and fire in the same day, does Texas? Boy, that's a risky business. But I do feel that they are definitely, meaning Texas, they are definitely putting out feelers for coaches like Schlossnagle, like Jay Johnson. And I think they've even made and put out some feelers for guys like Tony Vitello. And I'm going to tell you, as much as we want to clown Texas with the NIL that they do have for certain things, Tony Vitello there would be dangerous. I don't know if he's going to leave Tennessee. I think Tennessee would match anything that Texas offers. I do feel the same for Jay, even though he just got a long-term extension. You know, they had been planning for him, or they had made him last year the highest paid head coach, and they also made him the longest head coach when it comes to guaranteed money as a head coach. I feel safe with Jay, and I feel very confident in saying that. Can things change in the coaching carousel? 100%. It's like recruiting. When money starts getting floated around and NIL promises gets floated around, there's no telling. But the truth is LSU is the Alabama of college baseball. There's nowhere else better to be. I feel very good where we're at. I don't think I need to address it anymore. I know when moves are going to be made that it's going to start stressing people out. I feel okay. This weekend, I did not. This weekend, when, there were a lot of rumblings that Texas were making moves, I got to be honest with you, I was a little sick to my stomach thinking that they could make a move on Jay. As the weekend did go on, I started to feel better. So there we are. I did see some things today. I saw a lot of people debating about Jay Johnson. Guys, I am all on the ship. I am on the bandwagon. Been on the bandwagon. We'll stay on the bandwagon. You know what's interesting, man, is Jay has an act about himself that I still think he's going to destroy the portal. Now, I do think he's going to have some more guys that enter the portal. Some that I think that you will not be shocked at. We put some things on our message board, ayssnetwork.com, some things that we're hearing. Potentially there's going to be a guy entering the portal. And let's see what's up with Brady Neal. Brady has been a guy that a lot of people have reached out to, and I'm not saying it's legal or illegal. I'm just saying that it's some things that I'm hearing. But I do believe that Jay is going to continue to do what he does in the portal. Last year was a very different situation, and I don't think I think that man loves to win. He hates to lose more than he loves winning. Now, he loves winning the national championship, but that man hates losing. I feel good where we're at. And I don't think Scott Woodward is going to lose a battle. By the way, speaking of Texas, we're going to talk about this with Carter in just a moment. You know what I do think is highly interesting? Texas football reporters are reporting that they're having issues recruiting high school defensive linemen. But if you would have remembered about 6 months ago, they said that everything was Bo Davis's fault. The more you know. All right, a couple of comments here, and then we're going to get to Chandler Dorsey. Anthony B. Saints with a $199 super chat. He says, your thoughts on JJ possibly to Texas? I'm just not buying it at the current moment. Could it happen? Maybe. Do I think it's about a 5% chance? Yeah. I think that, the door, I don't think the door is completely open. Are closed. But I feel very confident that Jay stays. So I know I answered it here and I answered it before. I don't think Jay's leaving. Dane Bergeron says, Blake, Coach Paul Manieri may bring in some younger former players who play for him to groom to be recruiters and coaches. One former player in particular who parent is a prominent coach in another sport. Are you talking about Moffitt maybe? Who are you talking about there, Dane? Thank you for the super chat. Look, Dane, here's where I would counteract with that. That's all fine and dandy until and I think that we've realized this, man. I don't think any of that shit matters anymore. If I'm being honest. Maybe the high school guys, but these teams that are going to be in Omaha, you know what? More in baseball, more than anywhere. Guys, the teams that historically have done great and hit on guys in the portal, they're going to be in Omaha. NC State or Georgia is going to be the last team. Both of those teams desperately went into the portal. So my issue with Paul is how does he – and I don't even know if I should call it an issue, okay? I don't know how he's going to do in that. And I think that is a massive deal. Is Paul going to be one of the best in-game guys out there? 100%. 100%. I have nothing but love and respect for the man. I think he's going to have some success. I think he has early success. But I think as things go on, he's just not going to get the talent there that they need and to where they want to be. I don't see him winning the SEC. I don't think that he's going to have that type of talent. I really don't. And Look, what was the reasons why? Put it inside the chat. When Paul Manieri walked away and retired, thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat. Did you want him to walk away? What were the issues that he had then that you don't think that he would have now? Look, he might have had some health issues. The neck might have been an issue. I'm not buying it. I didn't buy it then. I told you I didn't buy it then. I'm not buying it now. The migraines. Guys, I say stuff like this. People are like, oh, of course you do, Blake. You always say. Guys, I have been open and honest to everybody that would listen about migraines that I have. It is a devastating thing to have migraines. Neck pain is a devastating thing. Believe you me, it's a devastating thing. I'm not buying it. It doesn't, are there days that I can't function from a migraine? 100%. Everybody goes through that. High stress situations. I get that. But look, man, like what did he do in the last 5 or 4 seasons? Like, I remember before COVID happened and the season was canceled. Y'all are thinking about him being fired because he was 12-5 during the year, losing to Southern. I remember that year. So let's not act like that at that moment that this fan base didn't believe that his time had passed. So what makes you believe now that his time hasn't passed? Are you that confident that his time hasn't passed now? I'm not. Come on, man. Come on, man. All right. Before we get Carter in here, because Carter Bryant joins us like he does every single Monday, is going to be our guest. Let me make a couple announcements about the portal baseball-wise. Cam Johnson did enter the transfer portal, the big-time lefty from Maryland. Look, a kid with a lot of talent. I don't think that LSU wanted that to happen at all. I think that there are some guys on their roster that they have processed. Okay, I think that there are some guys that they told to look elsewhere. Cam Johnson's not one of those guys. Aiden Moffitt also went the portal that we talked about. But Cam Johnson in the portal, I think, is a big blow. What was interesting to me, and not uncommon with this fan base, at all uncommon with this fan base, we had put it on social media, Cam Johnson's in the portal. Oh, he couldn't throw strikes. Okay. Well, I remind you that the last game that LSU played this year, do you remember the story arc from Will Hemmers? We talked about that last week. Because sometimes players take longer to develop. Sometimes there are people that are not in the same spot. Like, for example, Cade Anderson and Cam Johnson are not in the same place. They weren't in the same place coming in. Cade Anderson was more polished than Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson's very raw, but extremely talented. What was it? No SEC freshman pitcher had more movement from a spin rate and just actual movement on their slider more than Cam Johnson. Problem is he couldn't throw it for a strike. He can't throw strikes. We need pitchers, not throwers. I fugsy hate that statement. I hate it. It's a big blow, man. I think if you got to Jay and said, hey, man, what do you think about Cam Johnson in the portal? I'm sure he'd give you Coach P. Truth is, he would want that kid to be back to develop him, and let's see what happens. There's always a chance he can come back. I doubt that. I'm sure Wes Johnson, who is currently losing, has been on the phone with him, and Aiden Moffitt. I do think that, look, a lot of talent, but, man, it stinks. LSU did add a portal transfer pitcher today from South Florida, and Chandler Dorsey, who was really electric last year. 3.6 ERA. He had 8 saves and 30 innings pitched, had 26 appearances, only around 13 runs in those 30 innings. Had a lot of strikeouts, had 41, and was really good. About 95 to 97 on his fastball, really good slider. Faced teams like Florida State and Florida and had absolutely electric outings. A big-time piece for Jay Johnson, a guy that's been in the league or in college baseball for 2 years. He comes in here now, a guy that's going to have to be a big-time arm for you coming into next season. All right. I love the addition, by the way. Absolutely 100% positively love the addition. Now we got to get to some football because, and we'll talk a little baseball. Carter covered Paul Manieri when he was here or when he was at LSU. What does he think of the move? John Emery returns. So many more things that we got to get to. We do that next. Stay with us. Carter joins us.
Rufino and Joe Show is brought to you by Homefield Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. Whatever it is, even Idaho, they have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RufinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Rufino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
Guys, you might know my good friend Carol Falls and all the great service that he provides over at State Farm. He is your good neighbor after all. But did you know State Farm has surprisingly great rates as well? Along with the great neighbor service, State Farm agent Carol Falls has surprisingly great rates for everyone inside the state of Louisiana. So call him today at 985-395-4300, 985-395-4300 for all of those surprisingly great rates on auto, home, and life insurance needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to the State Farm underwriting requirements. By the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Whether you've been injured in an accident, you're preparing for a future with your estate planning, you're getting ready to close in on a real estate deal, or you're about to welcome a new addition through adoption into your family, or you're facing criminal charges, you need very experienced attorneys, and that is what the Drake Williams Law Firm will be able to do for you in navigating the legal system. The door to their cozy office in historic downtown Ponchatoula has been open since 1981. They have helped thousands and thousands of Louisiana families and individuals win cases, close on real estate deals, and regain that peace of mind. Their lawyers over at the Drake Williams Law Firm, Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, are very determined, compassionate, and dedicated to their craft. It's the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. Tell them your good friend Blake Rufino at AYS sent you on by. Carter, the Power Bryant. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Yeah, you know, one thing I think about all the time. So I just saw your tweet regarding the Garrett Nussmeier throw that Preston brought up. Here's the thing. All right, so the weirdest thing about that play was Joe Fouché was the one who almost made the play. That's the wildest thing. And then it was 2 years
later.
Yeah, it was still so wild that he joined LSU. Was it a year later or was it 2 years later?
Well, that would have been what, 2021, right?
Yeah, it would have been 2021. And then, yeah, so 1 year later, you're all right.
Yeah, 2021. Because remember, they pulled Max Johnson, and Orgeron was blaming Max. He had a torn labrum. And it was so crazy about that is Max Johnson threw the game-winning touchdown against Texas A&M. He transfers to,
Right.
Orgeron runs off, whatever. Look, about this thing with Preston, in case you guys missed it, Preston said that the throw that Garrett Nussmeier made where he broke the tackle, rolled out left, threw it to Jack Besh in the back of the end zone was the best throw that he had seen since Joe Burrow, the Joe Burrow days. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so it's so subjective, like best throw, right? Because if you say the best throw, then like everyone's going to say it was Marcus Randall, right? The Bluegrass Miracle. That's like
Well, he's saying since Burrow was here, which
yeah, right. But my point is, I understand Preston's point that it's not necessarily who the best quarterback is that's going to make.
Well, he had to come back but he had to come back and say, look, this isn't a slight on J.D. Daniels. The Army throw to BTJ when he's breaking tackles and then scrambling out right and throws it on a dime. You know, the multiple touchdown passes. Like I think of you know what's a bigger pass? Stepping up in the pocket, breaking a tackle from Dallas Turner, throwing the ball to Kyron Lacy with no time left on the fucking clock, and scoring a touchdown versus Alabama to tie it going into half. Under pressure against that team, a playoff team, is a bigger throw than Rudy Poo Tech, which Arkansas was defensively that year. And look, it's a great play by Nussmeier.
No, it's a really good play.
It's a really good play, and you had a Heisman Trophy winner.
Okay, do you want to know what the best J.D. Daniels throw is? And I think about
Mississippi State Malik Neighbors or what about the Alabama Malik Neighbors catch?
No. So I think about this throw all the time. I think about it all the time because if Chris Hilton makes the catch versus Ole Miss, that is the best throw. Knowing the time, knowing the situation, knowing the protection broke down.
That's true.
And it was a really tough catch, and he was interfered with. It could have been caught. If he makes that catch, the one thing, if that catch is completed, it shuts every Heisman voter up about the quote-unquote Heisman moment. So Jaden would have won the Heisman by even more because that was the number one thing.
Jaden because he certainly didn't do it against Florida.
Right. And that was
sarcasm, kids.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like what a lot of the stupid Heisman voters kept saying. Well, Jalen Milroe had that big throw versus Auburn. What he did versus Auburn wasn't nearly as impressive what Jaden did versus Ole Miss. And he had a gazillion throws in that game that were just stupendous. But the Ole Miss throw, where the protection broke down and he had to spin out, somehow, some way, not force the ball to Malik and BTJ, and then actually find a window. I mean, there were 7 people defending in the end zone, and Jaden still made that ball catchable by Chris Hilton. That is one of the best throws. I think about this all the time, though, Blake. Like, for instance, Tom Brady's best throw was broken up by Corey Webster. It was the deep shot to Randy Moss that would have saved the 17-0 season, right? And it was Corey Webster who made one of the biggest plays in NFL history and never gets credit for it.
What about did you see Preston's response to me, by the way? It was the most Donald Trump response of all time. I've watched every pass. Went to the practices, broke down film, and even asked about his deep ball. I assure you, no one does their due diligence more than me. Come on, Preston. Come on.
And look, so Anthony brings up Flynn to Bird. So last year, I actually started working on a deep dive.
I don't mind any of those passes, Carter.
I don't either.
I'm just talking about, like, listen, the Kyron Lacy pass, the Army pass, every single pass that J.D. Daniels threw against Florida, stop the cap. The Malik Neighbors one against Alabama is the most ridiculous throw that you.
Oh yeah,
I mean, stop.
Okay, so I'll say this, and then we'll go to a different topic. So I actually reached out to Matt Flynn and asked him about Flynn to Bird, and in perfect Matt Flynn fashion, he doesn't like the attention, being on him. He said the best throw he's ever seen was Jamarcus Russell versus Arizona State. The early Doucette. That's the best. He said that is the best.
Carter, that ball wasn't it 62 yards in the air?
Yes, on 4th down on a lot. There are maybe 10 quarterbacks.
He leaned into that one.
Yeah, there are maybe like 3 SEC quarterbacks ever who could have actually made that throw, because you have to have like transcendent arm strength. Because if you actually watch that throw, Blake, that ball is thrown so freaking hard. And the fact, like, it still was going. I mean, to put, like, I just don't understand how a human being could have put that much on a football. Like, it was so freaking ridiculous. At the end of a fourth quarter game where he got destroyed, he's tired. I mean, Jay Russ was one of freaking one when it comes to arm strength. And Flynn said to me on Twitter, he said, that's the best throw he has ever seen live. So I could go. Someone mentioned Skylar Green from Matt Mock. That was a great throw, obviously, at the end of the Georgia game. But, man, and obviously Burrow.
The best pass, I'm just going to be honest. The Kyron Lacy pass will live in infamy for me.
Yeah, at the end of the second quarter versus Alabama. Yeah,
at the end of the second quarter, getting popped, running away, throwing that as hard as he did over the middle against Caleb Downs. By the way, it's going to be a top 5 pick when he comes out, and then not this year, but the year after his draft. So I get what Preston's saying. I'm not saying he's wrong. Like you mentioned in the beginning, it's objective, right? Like it's purely objective.
Or subjective. It's subjective. You're right. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah. I can't, and it goes back to the point where I just like, I don't know why even make that comment when, like, even the Mississippi State game, the fades, the inside fades. I would even say that the throw to Mason Taylor against Alabama and the back of the end zone was better.
I will also say, and obviously Dane goes Tommy Hodson to Daddy Fuller. And Dane, I appreciate you super chatting. I expect another super chat to fly in for Blake while I'm on here. I would like to see some more of those. That's good stuff, Dane. I don't even know if that's the Garrett Nussmeier's best throw. I mean, there was some.
Garrett Nussmeier's best throw was against a first-round corner and safety against Georgia in the SEC championship game. It's not even Garrett's best throw.
Yeah, the cover 2 hole shot.
The cover 2 hole shot to Malik is his best throw. Like, I think what Preston is trying to say is when he breaks the tackle and he's scrambling, the broken tackle is what's getting him. That's not anyway. All right.
Yeah.
Very quickly, because we got a lot of football stuff we got to get into here. Paul Manieri, South Carolina. Wow.
Yeah, I was really blown away by that. I would not have made that move. Now, Blake, as you know, I have done radio in South Carolina for about like 2.5, 3 years. Okay. And their fans are some of the best SEC fans in the world. I'm serious. Some of the best college fans in the world because they are
being toxic on Twitter. They got a good fan base.
They do. I know you're friends with the guy from Unfiltered SEC.
Yeah, Chris Phillips.
And he's a South Carolina guy. And you'll tell, dude, Gamecock Nation, they are great. And look, I'm very happy with all the success that they've had, and to go along with Don Staley, and you get one of the best press conference coaches in the world. Paul is a great speaker. He's going to excite a lot of people. I think their last coach wasn't the most affable guy, and I think that's part of it.
Yeah, Kingston was kind of an asshole.
Right. So part of it is Paul, shake names, kiss babies, raise money. That is who you want. I just don't know. And how freaking competitive the SEC is now, how hard as hell it is to recruit these players now. Do you really want to have someone get right back into the heat of it? I just don't know if it's a good fit. And and like we discussed earlier, and Paul is a way better coach than this guy, but it does feel miles-ish to Kansas. I
said the same thing.
Yes, it does feel like, and you and I discussed it earlier. But yeah, I'm always going to root for Paul because he brought a natty to LSU. Anyone that does that, I'm always going to be a fan of yours. But man, I would not have gone in this direction. Then again, I am not the college baseball guy. That is Aaron Fitt. That's not me.
I do think that I think what happened too was he didn't recruit like himself. He gave that over to Nolan Kane. He wasn't the best recruiter. He delegated that. Now, I do think he could delegate it again with Terry Rooney, who's a good recruiter. But he's not going to be out there like Jay Johnson hitting the portal like that. I really don't think that he will. I don't think that he'd fly to go see guys. Like if a guy's at home and the guy hits the portal, I don't think Paul's going to go and do that. So it's interesting, Carter, to see what he does in the NIL and portal world. He is a 66-year-old man. And look, I'm just going to be honest. I don't mean this in a wrong way to any of our older listeners that's in here. Older people tend to hate the portal, even though LSU might have benefited the most out of all the sports in the world from the transfer portal. I just, I don't know if Paul is going to do that. That would be, look, you can't, I mean, you can buy, but Carter, he's got 1,501 wins. Yeah, it's the sixth most in college baseball's history. Like, that is insane. You're not going to outsmart Paul when it comes to like baseball knowledge, right? Yeah. Like, it's just not going to happen. But I don't. If you told me right now, like if you told me to tier the SEC head coaches right now, I don't know if he's in your top 8.
Right. Okay. And look, the age difference is massive here, but like it would be kind of like LSU going to hire Jim Boeheim to be your basketball coach, right? Do you really want someone who is wildly successful, Hall of Famer, who is older? Do you think they're really going to come back in and embrace the way things are now compared to when Paul left the game? No, I just don't know if it. Once again, I am not a South Carolina fan, and I want Paul to do well. I just would not have gone in that direction. And Dane dropped another super. And like I said, it just feels like that. Like once again, I would never. And I told you this earlier, Blake, why I wouldn't do it. Yeah, as a person, it's not.
I do think it's a bit of a stretch. Let me say this about Manieri, comparing Manieri to Les. Manieri won 641 games at LSU. He got the 5 College World Series. That'd be like getting the 5 playoffs this year. Like in today's day and age. In 15 seasons, 4 of those seasons are 50 wins. He did win a natty. I just think that people compare it as that he won one national championship and then lost another, right? Like that. No. That's what they compare it to. But we can't bypass that after that 2017 season that things went more downhill, right? Like you can't say that they didn't, because they did. He didn't. I think he had one other 40-win team. And that's not, or maybe 2, but that's not. Look, there's a reason he retired. There's a reason he was pushed out. And Carter, I got to be honest, I think everything that he said about LSU since he retired is bullshit. Like, and I know that former players are going to rip me alive. They continue to do it to me on Twitter. Guys, it's bullshit. Paul Manieri wants to be a head coach, whether it's at LSU, South Carolina. This place mattered to him, but he wanted to be a head coach. When he said, like when he said the other 2 weeks ago, this is the best college baseball place in the country. Does he truly believe that? Because I don't think that he does. And I don't think that him and Jay had the best of relationships either. I mean, Jay is constantly with Skip. I mean, he's talking about Skip. When's the last time you heard Jay talk about Paul Manieri? And another thing, and during the Florida series, Paul was up in the booth and said, a majority of those players that were on that roster were my players that I recruited. Okay, Paul. Well, then you fumbled the bag then, because Kay Beloso wasn't doing that good under you. Neither was Gavin Dugas. There were so many guys that didn't have success under you that when Jay came in, they had more success. What's your story about that now? I'm not trying to be petty towards Paul, but let's not act as if that Jay didn't come in here and really do some really good things too.
Yeah. What happened so Ray Tanner just became an AD, right? He just
who was the former head baseball coach there, and look, is friends with Paul.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if Ray had a good relationship with Paul, and I would guess that he did. Once again, I'm not smart enough on college baseball to break down the intricacies. I just don't know if I would have hired an older coach who's been out of it to get into the portal and fly all around the country and grind. But if he's willing to do it, then
More power to him, man. But is he going to want to grind? I think is the ultimate question.
Right.
It's not the only big news that, and thank you, Dame, for the super chat there. I don't think it's the big news that left LSU Tiger fans shocked this week. Maybe it was Cam Johnson that hit the portal, but John Emery returns. Now, you and I, Carter, have spoke about, does LSU need another running back? I'm going to leave this open-ended to you. I have my thoughts and opinions. I have not spoke on it yet, but I want to get your thoughts on John Emery returning to LSU.
Yeah, it's a good thing because he is a running back, and he does add depth to the room, and he knows the offense, right? So all those things are really, really freaking good, and they just needed another body in the room who we know is good. I think also, Blake, it's important to point out like who John Emery is, right, as a player,
right,
when he's been fully healthy. All right,
fumble prone, not hitting the right holes.
Yeah, and early in his career, some major pass protection issues.
Right.
And all that aside, I am not sure he's let's say Jacoby Stevens, for instance, right? He was a 5-star recruit who was probably more of a 4-star producer at LSU, a very, very solid player, but not the true 5-star. It was Grant Delpit who was a true 5-star in that class, right? I think the same thing applies here. When John has actually played, Blake, I don't know if I could say I've ever seen him and said, wow, this guy is truly special. Like, he is truly unfreaking believably good. Now, he's had some special plays, but I don't know if I would consider to be transcendent, if you will, or just very, very good as like a 5-star level producer when he's been healthy, when he's been around. So I want people to understand from my vantage point, I still think it's a Caleb Jackson show. I still think it's a Josh Williams show. And at this time, especially considering John is coming off a very visceral injury, I would think Caden Durham is going to outproduce him next year. But the fact that he is a warm body who knows the offense, entering the prime of his athletic career, a year 6 guy, I think it's a really, really good thing that LSU was able to add another body who's going to give them something.
All right, if I just go bye-bye for a minute, it's absolutely pouring here, so just stay with me, Carter. Don't leave me. Okay.
I'll go by myself. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah. Here are my thoughts about John Emery here. I'm going to say this, but I want to be careful on how I say it, and the words that I use might be wrong. I think they mismanaged the depth. I think what has happened here, okay, is Trey Holly's, the DA in the Trey Holly case recused himself. So did the judge, which then pushed back the court case. You know, Brian Kelly said, Carter, that he thought that the Trey Holly case would be done by mid-April. Well, I mean, we're 10 days into June. So he doesn't have another court case or they're getting a continuance until I think it's June 28th, okay, which is a Friday. I don't know where that's going. What I think happened is that they thought that he might not come back, and they just wanted John to come back to add for depth. And I got to be honest with you. He tore his ACL on November 11th against Florida. And I asked the question, like, unless he's Adrian Peterson and can return in 8 months, he's not going to be ready for camp. Where is his rehab? And those are questions that we don't have at the current moment.
Right.
I also don't buy this notion that's been floated out there idiotically. Oh, well, this is the first time that John Emery is going to be running behind an elite offensive line. Are we idiots? Like, it's the same old line besides the center. Like, what are we really discussing with that?
Right. And Blake, he's gotten beaten out. You know, like,
yeah, he's gotten beaten out. Carter, if he wouldn't be hurt, here's the truth. He would be in front of Caden Durham week 1. Okay, probably mainly due to the fact that he knows the playbook and he's a 6-year senior. By week 2, it would be over for John.
Yeah, if Caden Durham is good between the ears and picks up the playbook, he's so good. Like, I have been so careful by not overhyping him, and there are some concerns with me with his running style not being the absolute biggest guy. A lot of my viewers know I love thickness, but I mean, he's well built for his size. Caden is like a true home run hitting back, like a guy that is very
That can break a tackle and take it 90.
right. Like he is truly, truly, truly spectacular. And you can make a case that he is the most productive if you were just basing it on what these guys did in their high school careers. He is the most productive since Fournette, like the most like an actual high school football versus elite Texas competition. He dominated. Now, was he around other 5-stars? Yes. Was he around Reginald?
Well,
Sample?
he didn't have all 5-star offensive line. I mean, he didn't have. I mean,
right, but
right.
He had great coach. Samples is one of the best coaches in Texas, and yeah, he had all that, but he was dominant, like 200 yards a game, dominant. Biggest spots in the season, dominant. Versus DeSoto, state championship games, dominant. Like that's really hard to do, and I just think he's very good, and he's going to really propel LSU forward. But I'm with you on the John thing. I'm skeptical about the situation he's in right now, and look, TDP, who was in the same recruiting class, is about to enter year 3 in the NFL.
How nuts is that?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it's absolutely
well, and there's this notion out there too, Carter, that I saw something this week. We were speaking about Preston earlier. Oh, well, these guys didn't miss. Well, they certainly missed with John Emery. Because he was a 5-star guy. I mean, and look, I'm not trying to come out here and poo-poo on John, but I think we need to get realistic to what actually has happened here. Now, when I say they mismanaged the depth, that doesn't mean they mismanaged the position. Okay, look, you got 3 dudes that can play. Okay, like let's not mistake that Caleb Jackson, Caden Durham, and Josh Williams can play here. Okay, like that is 100% something that we know. What I do think is interesting here, though, is why now? Okay, and the question now becomes, what does this mean for Trey Holly? And Carter, I'm just going to be real with you. I know that the young man doesn't want to rat out anybody. He doesn't want to be a rat, or what he perceives to be a rat, okay? Look, if you didn't do something, you got to tell people, okay? And I think that is, look, you remember the old Bernie Mac thing when he said, the old Bernie Mac skit, when he was like, he starts jumping up and down, and he said, you can call me a rat all you want, but if I'm not going to jail for you, because he was talking about doing stand-up in a prison. He goes, I'm jumping and pointing at you that you did it. I ain't going to jail for you. I want him to do that, because if now they dropped the murder charge, okay, and we've talked about this a lot. Carter, I don't know if I have a lot of faith that he's here in August. I pray to God he is, but look, you have a head coach that was saying that they were told that this is supposed to be done in April and it's not. So what it seems to me, okay, now look, I do have a legal background and that's fine. But what it did, and this could be wrong, but what it feels on the surface without not knowing any other information, it feels like you're going to get another DA from another district that's going to want to prove a point. That they can go in and to another district and go into another judicial system and prove that they can come and get this kid.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I think Trey is being told to stay quiet, and I won't comment on the legal thing. Obviously, you have a legal background. Man, as far as just the football is concerned, he actually played a lot better as a true freshman last year than I thought. I thought he was purely going to be a year 2 guy because of some athleticism concerns and whatnot, and the step up from the competition he was in. He also obviously was extremely dominant, but the level was just completely different than someone that Caden Durham was going up against. Man, Blake, he really did some good things last year. He could have been the Terrence McGee of this room, right? Just a guy who can go out there and get the job done if you absolutely.
I think he's more athletic than I think he's more not athletic, because Terrence could have been a baseball player and nobody would have. I mean, the kid was throwing 91, 92 as a lefty off the mound. You remember when Les Miles tried to make him throw a pass in the game, his most telegraphed thing ever. He's more explosive than Terrence, but I agree. I think that's a good comp. He could have been a glue guy, Terrence Remember that opening game against TCU? Had a big run for a touchdown. So,
Yeah.
look, I agree with that. Let me ask you this too, and then we'll get to some other things football related. Do you think that the depth was mismanaged?
The depth? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of portal running backs, and I'm not saying to cut Trey Holly loose. I'm not telling anybody to cut any Louisiana kid loose. What I'm saying is, you weren't going to go get 5. You were already 3 guys over the limit. You were at 88 scholarship players. Well, Carter, you let 7 dudes walk. Okay, and so did you really think that you were going to get 4 DTs in here?
Blake, I'll be honest. I think there would have been some portal running backs very interested to join this room, knowing what the depth chart looked like. I mean, I think
Ole Miss got 27 of them. Ole Miss legitimately, Carter, got 4 transfer portal running backs.
I think the vision could have easily been sold to a lot of running backs. Hey, this is the best offensive line we've had. Hey, we're going to run the football more next year. And we've got 3 scholarship warm bodies that we know for sure that'll be in our room next year. I think that could have been an easy sell. But
Frank's track record of rotating backs
and developing them as well.
Right.
I was very, very, very shocked. But like you said, Blake, the focus was mostly on the defense, right? They were so focused in on just getting as much defensive help as they possibly could. I would have gotten another back. But I
would have too. And one that wasn't injured.
Yeah, look, that's the thing, man. You know, I wish the perfect back would have been Kane coming back for an extra year. That would have been the perfect LSU back, because he was really good when he actually got the football. He just wasn't spectacular. But he's not
How
available.
Crazy was it that he led the team in rushing touchdowns in 22 and then didn't have but 1 last year?
Yeah, led the team in rushing touchdowns and had the best success rate of all LSU running backs that year. He just ran into a lot of bad luck with the 8 players in the depth chart and not being a home run hitter. But he was really good when he actually got the football.
And I understand the whole Harlem Berry, TJ Lindsey thing. You're bringing in a pair of backs next year. I understand Caden Durham, but the problem is, and like we mentioned, you're a running back injury away from being in a little bit of a pickle. Carter, let me transition here to a little bit of recruiting. Did you see this from Texas? Texas media has been reporting over the last week. The big thing, the big scuttlebutt at Texas this past week has been how bad they've been recruiting high school wise on the defensive line, where LSU has started to trend, and for some of the prospects on the defensive line that Texas thought that they would. Have you noticed something different here? Now, I know that you got Gabe Rutherford. I know that you got Don McKinley. But, Carter, the quantity of guys that I think that they're about to get under Bo Davis is better than under the Brian Kelly regime than we've ever had.
Yeah, I was on here last week talking about Brandon
Brown. Right.
I like Brandon Brown a lot.
Well, Xavier Ukponu, how I say that last name?
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Ukponu. I can't say his last name either. He's another kid that I think's a lean. The Shanklin kid. I mean, Carter, are you starting to get to a place a little bit here where, are you recruiting are we getting better here on the defensive line in high school recruiting?
I hope so, man. I actually went back and rewatched what Brandon Brown said, because this tape is fun. There's some guys that have tape where you just laugh, and he was definitely one of those guys. Whit Weeks had that kind of tape. When I watched him, I was like, dude, this guy is freaking incredible. I don't know how good the competition is. It wasn't all that great on Whit Weeks's tape, but he made me laugh. Brandon Brown did that a lot. I really like watching him play. The Zion Williams guy is interesting, unless he's committed somewhere. Yeah, but I'm really excited what he's doing. Obviously, Bo and Texas. One thing they do have though is they have Lamborghini, and they got Lamborghinis lined up for when you walk in.
Did you hear that they're renting those for $500 a day?
Yeah,
those aren't purchased Lamborghinis; those are rented Lamborghinis.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. as far as that is concerned, okay, the kids like it. Whether or not people want to admit it, the kids like the cheesy stuff. They just do. The Lamborghini thing, though, would turn me off as a parent, right? Because you're older. That bullshit is just not. They know it's optics.
Don't
Older,
decorate the hotel rooms, though.
yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't. They'll destroy you over that now. But if I was a parent and I saw that, I'd be like, come on, for real, for real. I and I don't want my.
Let you drive one.
Well, as a parent, if I was allowed to drive it, I would be a little bit different. But
Knowing
I don't know if I want my kid driving that, knowing how,
you want your kid in like a Palisade for
right.
safety.
I'm telling you this, as you know, Blake, and we had this debate on my channel a while ago. I really liked Anthony Richardson going into the NFL. I really did. And the main thing that I loved from him was that, do you know the story? He got arrested for going 100 on a freeway. All right. And like a Hellcat that was leased him as a part of an NIL deal. All right.
I didn't know that.
Okay. So he got the story's not talked about enough. And he then had the presence of mind to go to the NIL deal in the deal. And then he immediately went and bought a Toyota Camry. And I was like, that is the leadership and presence I want out of my quarterback. Like that is, and I don't know if I got all the details correct there, but I was like, that is some impressive decision making. Do you know how hard it was for him to turn that thing back in and be like, let me go get a Corolla. Let me go get something.
Do you think that Anthony Richardson went up there and was like, that Nissan Altima's hitting? You know, like that Nissan Ultimate with the push button is hitting.
Oh God!
Danny Girl in the comments says rented Lambos are better than corny supper club signing or singing. Excuse me. Yeah.
Well. Here's my thing. For me, it's not.
You know how? Do you know what you got to go and do to get a rented Lambo though?
It's a lot of work. You got to go to the guys, make sure
somebody's got to drive it there.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Another thing about recruiting, what's your feel on DK Moore if you have one?
I don't. I've kind of just, I don't know about you. Like, one of my favorite moments was the day you called me before driving to Dallas and you were going to do the whole thing. I was like, oh yeah. I was like,
I didn't tell a soul. I knew for
you called me.
Days.
Yeah. So you called me. I was like, man, I hope you have plugged in internet. And I know you've told that story plenty of times, but I really hope he picks LSU because he is special. Like I've watched him, I evaluated him. He's so freaking good. With that said, all right, I don't know how he's feeling about LSU. Obviously, a lot has changed. He met with Jamar Chase. Everyone said the visit went well. I really don't pay attention to that because all visits go well, especially if you're a 5-star receiver, as transcendently good as he is. I would also say that every great wide receiver LSU has missed on, another one has spawned up from the ashes. And it has been like that for forever. Losing Jermaine Burton didn't hurt ultimately. Losing JoJo Earl was the biggest.
Devonta Smith didn't hurt, but he still won a Heisman.
Yes.
I mean, but
yeah,
right.
Yeah. Obviously, it stings if you don't end up getting him, and LSU spending so many resources and time to get this kid because he is really good. And you want to keep that Duncanville thing going, and you want Bryce Underwood, who DeCorian Moore knows pretty well, to have that connection and feel comfortable with someone like that around him. But like LSU has always been fine at receiver. Now, if he was an offensive tackle, I would be in shambles right now. But, at this point, I'm not panicking just yet. And Blake, I'll tell you this. When I first watched, and I always said Jamie French, it's Jaime French. I had the I and the M mixed up. I've always said Jamie French. I watched him this weekend doing some 7-on-7 stuff. He's growing on me. You know how I feel about Khalid Clockett. I don't know how well of a chance we really have with him. There's some other guys that I'm very interested in this class at wide receiver. And obviously Teron Francis is a pretty solid, athletically built wide receiver from Louisiana. And most of LSU's best receivers are from Louisiana. The last out-of-state wide receiver to catch over 40 passes at LSU has been Terrence Tolliver. So LSU will be fine at wide receiver regardless, but Decory Moore makes him that much better.
Why am I forgetting something big that happened in the SEC? Why am I forgetting something big that's happened? I wanted to get your thoughts on. I don't.
When you stare. Now go on.
Did you see this thing about now they want to go to 9 conference games in the SEC?
I didn't.
Yeah, I think we talked about that, didn't we?
No, I know. I this is the best news ever for me. Like, go for it.
Can I give a counteraction?
Yeah, go on ahead.
I'm not saying I agree with this, but let me give a counteraction. Did you see ESPN's top 10 toughest schedules in the country per the FPI?
No, I didn't.
All right, it was 10 SEC or 9 SEC schools in Georgia Tech, who's got to play Miami, Florida State, and Georgia.
Okay. Yeah.
With that being said, I don't think it's. I got to be real with you. I don't think it's created equally. I think the SEC playing 8 conference games is not created equally to other conferences. If you add, think about this. Let's just say hypothetically that Florida had Oklahoma added to their schedule.
No, Blake, I will tell you this. The data overwhelmingly shows that you're correct. All right. So I think some of you are familiar with Dave Bartu, who studies this. And Dave is a really good friend of mine. And he's a college football consultant for a lot of teams. And he is the brightest college football mind I've ever met. He and I have gotten into the most intense debates. And I call Dave a friend of mine. He is the biggest proponent of the SEC staying at 8 games.
I think I lean there too, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. And guess what? You as an LSU fan, you should want that too. Now, this is a debate. And Blake, as you know, schedule format is the thing I am the most passionate about over anything else. In sports, it is the single most important thing in every single sports league is how you format, how you determine champions, how you determine your leagues and all of that. So I will tell you LSU's position on this, Blake, is they want
9.
Yes, and there has not been a single team in the SEC based on public remarks and what I've also heard privately that want 9 games. Scott Woodward last year at SEC meetings in Destin told Paul Feinbaum, I want 9 conference games. Brian Kelly is very competitive. He wants 9 conference games. It helps the SEC if they stay at 8. It helps the SEC because in college football, Blake, the most important thing to do is not win games.
It helps me financially.
Yes, 9 games helps you. The most important thing in college football, people get this wrong all the time. It's not winning games. It's avoiding losses. That is the single most important thing. All right. When last year I did a deep dive on Kentucky, I learned through speaking to people in the SEC and listening to press conferences, the one single person that is the biggest proponent for an 8-game conference schedule is Kentucky. All right. And then LSU is on the other end of it. They want 9. What Mitch Barnhart, the athletic director at Kentucky, says is if you add an extra conference game, you are adding 8 more losses to an SEC schedule every year. And he's right, because if you play each other,
somebody's got to lose, right?
Someone's got to lose in that head-to-head. And I hear that. This would be my retort, is that outside of your LSU fandom, and if you're an Arkansas fan, if you're a South Carolina fan, if you're a Kentucky fan, you want to stay at 8. You do not want 9, especially if you're a bottom-tier team. 9 is a death sentence if you're Missouri, if you will. They might think they're great, but they're not in the upper tier. And they are great for right now, but they're not in the upper tier. The thing, though, Blake, and this is why it's so important, is the neutral college football viewer benefits from a 9-game conference schedule. So taking out your fandom, you get an extra game of value added to your schedule. You get an extra high leverage situation added to your schedule. And that to me is important because I'm a huge college football fan.
I don't hate that. That's the thing that I like about it the most.
Right.
The issue with that is not the SEC's, not that I don't want more high leverage games.
Right.
It's the fact of that other conferences aren't created equally. Let me give an example. There's a very strong chance that Kansas State at 10-2 this year could be over. Let's just say Georgia loses the SEC championship game again, and they have one loss. Well, they will have a bye week, and Georgia will not. Right? Georgia would be a 5 seed again. I mean, we just saw this play out. That's one of them. Why wasn't any Big Ten team on there? Because, let me tell you, because Michigan plays a schedule. Now, they have high leverage games too. They only have really 4 high leverage games, but they also have Northwestern. They have Rudy Poo Tech. They got Rutgers. It's not created equally. So I understand what you're saying, but how can I look at an 8-game conference schedule and say, well, look, even though they're playing one less conference game, their schedule is actually tougher. For the last 5 weeks of Florida's schedule, okay, or 5 weeks of their Florida schedule, of the last 5 weeks or 4 weeks in the middle of Georgia's schedule, I'm going to say 5 weeks. They like these teams, okay, even Kentucky was at number 4. These teams go through stretches and months through a season, at least a month through a season, that the Big Ten can't replicate.
I agree. I agree.
So why is it me as a fan? I understand the high leverage situation and a potentially another home game that I could attend. Okay, I'm going to be a home game if I play a G5 program anyway. The issue becomes is for me though. Look, y'all aren't up to par with what's being faced here. Now think about it like this. Josh Pate said this last night, and I agree with him. If you took out Alabama, okay, besides the Big Ten, if you took out Alabama, LSU, and Georgia, the draft picks for all of those conferences or the SEC still is bigger than the Big 12, the ACC, and what would have been the Pac-12 of last season. Here's another thing. If you took out LSU from last year, the SEC still has more draft picks, okay? I just don't I don't understand where people are saying you got to go to 9 because everybody else goes to 9. Well, you know what? If little Johnny jumps off a bridge, my fat ass isn't going to follow him. Okay? It's just not going to happen.
Right.
Because the national champion last year, as an example, Carter went through 6 weeks of a cakewalk.
No, I'm with you, Blake. That's obviously a very good discussion. Like the SEC is tougher than a Big Ten schedule. I'm totally with you on that. But, all right, the SEC is at 16. All right. There is a potential of even more being added. If you remain at an 8-game conference schedule, depending on how you actually structure that schedule, and there's ways that you could structure the schedule where you can get teams rotated through if you boldly go to the one permanent team on your schedule. There is a way to do it.
Well, they can't do what Sankey did and just flip-flop it.
And
right, like he flip-flop home and away for next year, which is lazy as shit.
And I think there is a reason he did that.
Why?
I think more teams are coming. And I think
it's Florida State and North Carolina. Why build an SEC office if you're the SEC network in Charlottesville?
Yeah, what I've heard, Blake, is North Carolina has a really strong chance of being in the SEC within the next 3 to 4 years. Now, I am not the big conference realignment guy. This is what I've heard, but it's partially that. And as we all witnessed in the regional, not to bring up tough moments, but North Carolina's got a damn good fan base, and they got a big.
Big overnight, they make your basketball basketball in your conference is much bigger than.
Yes.
I went to a Buffalo Wild Wings in North Carolina. I'll never forget this. It was in the middle of March. March Madness was about to fully take way, and I think it was like the first round. Dude, the Buffalo Wild Wings was packed.
Dude,
it was insane. I'm like, this is what a football Friday in Baton Rouge looks like, or football Saturday, excuse me. So, look, to end this, I don't want to keep you long. I've kept you a long time already.
I could talk schedule format all day. My last thing I will say on the 9-game thing, though, is if you do expand, right, or even if you stay at 16 teams, one thing that has been constantly complained about in the SEC, and it is without a doubt an unfreaking believably valid claim, is are you really a conference if you rarely play certain teams?
But hold on. Okay, but hold on. I understand what you just said or what you're saying. That's not an issue. You know why it's not an issue? It's an issue because Greg Sankey, I'm just going to be honest with you, has been lazy as shit the last 3 years. Outside of going and getting Texas and Oklahoma and trying to help NIL in the portal, with scheduling, with officiating and umpiring, he's been lazy as fuck. Like, let's just be real. Because there's no reason why Georgia should have not been at – they've never been to Kyle Field since they've been in the conference. Whose fault is that? Okay, the fault of it is it's Sankey's. You know what he could have done? Even if they're adding more teams in, I want Texas to be in Baton Rouge. They owe us. And you know what? I am putting the entire Manning family legitimately in the middle of the student section next to the band, and we're going to raise money for the band to play neck the entire game. And we're putting Arch, we're putting our Archie, we're putting Peyton, we're putting Eli, we're putting Cooper. Okay, we're putting all them some bitches in the middle of the student section for what they did to Joe Burrow's daddy. I have not forgotten about that shit.
Well, what they did to
Joe Burrow's daddy in the nosebleed.
Oh, I thought you said that the Mannings did something to Joe Burrow.
But when they would come here, he would be the starting quarterback. Sorry, Cooper.
No, first off, as you know, Blake, I'm a huge Peyton Manning guy, so I will not allow Peyton slander to occur.
I mean, they couldn't fit his entire forehead in the student section.
That dude, you don't get on Peyton, man. There's a lot of knowledge, man. There's a lot of Omaha.
I mean, tell me another man that's got a bigger forehead.
Well, I mean, I don't have a bigger forehead, but we've discussed head size, so I'm not one to talk about head size.
The man's got the biggest forehead. He looks like Ed the horse. Now, I love Peyton, but I'm just saying. All right.
I would look. I do agree that Texas should have been coming to Baton Rouge the first year. That would have appeased. It would have made me very happy.
There's no reason for us to play Oklahoma. None.
Yeah, I get that. But I think Texas is going to be really good. So, and I don't think Oklahoma is going to be as good as them. So,
I'm not scared of them.
I'm not either. I would have loved to have played them.
My only thing here is to end this, because I need to let you go anyway. To end this, let me just say this: when things aren't created equally, when you go into a playoff, like Carter, somebody in the ACC is going to come out of this, and they're going to have, somebody's going to get a bye. And Carter, we're talking about automatic qualifiers. Like, Carter, there was a very strong chance that North Carolina, NC State could have had an automatic qualifier last year. Like, think about it like this: based off of power rankings, okay, there could have been a strong possibility because of automatic qualifiers, NC State would have gotten in over LSU.
So what? It's conference champions.
Conference champions, and the ACC gets 3, the SEC and Big 10 get 4, and the Big 12 get 3. And then if they expanded to 14, then there's a group of 5. That's how they're trying to plan.
Oh no, I didn't know. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I thought it was.
So, I mean, the truth is,
I thought it was after conference champions.
no, I mean, that's what it is this year. That's what it is until 2025. But then in 2026, it expands, okay, or it will expand into 14, okay, and then you're going to have automatic qualifiers. Screw that on 9 conference games. It doesn't benefit the SEC because the money comes in the back end in the playoff. That extra $3 million you get, Fugazi, who gives a Rudy Poo? Get to the playoff.
That's why it's going to stay at 8. But I didn't hear anything about.
Yeah, Ross Salinger reported it like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I have Ross's tweets on alerts. I didn't see it, I guess.
Yeah, it was. We talked about it on Ruffino and Joe show that is the pending decision that they're trying to make in 2026.
Yeah, but I've been too busy and
cooking your eggs and turkey bacon.
That and I bought a PS5.
You ready for the college football game? Yeah, you are.
Well, part of it, Blake, is I'm about to start doing some gaming content, even though I don't know how to record gaming content, because the kids in my neighborhood bug me about it all the time, about not doing gaming content.
What are you going to play, Fortnite?
No, I'm going to play the soccer game. That's my favorite video game.
I got one question that I'm going to let you go.
Go ahead.
Name a G5 team that you're going to be the head coach of,
and
then work your way up to become the next LSU head coach.
I want to pick Tulane because of the uniforms and all that, but that's too boring. That's too boring. We are going to be the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers.
I said that last night too.
Because the nickname is just. Oh, you said it last night.
And they got great uniforms.
Okay. Well, then I'll pick the Idaho Vandals. Or I'll go Vandal Nation.
Aren't the Vandals in FCS though? They moved down to FCS.
Okay, that's true. So if I want to become an SEC head coach, even though I would be the coach at Auburn, I'll go be the coach at Arkansas State, because that's the pipeline to being an SEC coach. Go be a coach at Arkansas State and win some games for the Red Wolves. But Blake, it's always fun, man. I appreciate you big time.
See you, buddy.
See you.
All right, that's Carter the Power Bryant. Always fantastic. We're gonna get out of here with him. We'll see y'all tomorrow, man. Y'all have a good one. Peace.